environment. As such, this particular topic is one thing which is undoubtedly present with PT and mains both syllabus. When we speak about over here, few sections which have been categorically asked: ecology, then concepts of pollution and environmental degradation. Conservation of the environment, policies and schemes, and then a section comes in from, say, national and international governance, and of course, a bit about the current news, current issues as far as PT is concerned. One more thing which is there with the PT syllabus itself is biodiversity. Now, as such, the concepts of biodiversity, distribution of flora and fauna, threats, conservation, of course, the current issues in this. Mains, when we speak about the syllabi itself, it has certain domains of environment, and the concepts, they come in from PT. Much of it is more issue based, and issues can be derived from any of these topics which are mentioned with PT. So, as such, when we speak about this particular topic, we need to go into the details of all these topics. We'll see how we will be dealing with all these topics and what all has to be covered, and of course we'll take into account the type of questions that are being asked, why they are asked, in which domain they are asked. That is the objective today. Not today, but everything would be discussed with this under the governance aspect, the international governance. Exactly, everything under the current issues also. First aspect of, or the first topic of this comes up with ecology. The conceptual happening, or what we say is omnipresent in every year. We'll find questions coming from ecology in PT. They are basic questions, general questions. They have to be dealt not very with, say, we don't want to go into much specificity of ecology, but a brief understanding is required for this. When we say ecology, or when we speak about ecology, ecology is something which deals with particular things. Say, we speak about biotic and abiotic factors. In general, we can say living and non-living things. Or in general, we can simply say these are actors and the platform for acting. When we speak about environment as such, or when you utter the word environment, what do we mean by this? What is the simple meaning of environment? Surroundings. And how do you classify surroundings? Living and non-living. Fine. And then when we classify much details of it, then the simple things which are going around. And 5 different elements: soil, water, sunlight, air, temperature. These are the happenings all around. So when we need to approach environment as such, or when we need to look into the in-depth of this particular topic, we speak about first aspect, soil, water, air, temperature and sunlight, and the second aspect, living beings. Correct? When we say surrounding or when we say environment, practically these two things exist. And practically when these two things exist, then there must be an interaction between these two things. Interaction between living beings themselves, interaction of or interference of the surrounding things, and then an interdependence of these two on each other. Now when we speak about ecology, this is ecology. Simply. This is what we mean by ecology. We need to understand how the surrounding is created. We need to understand how living beings are existing. We need to understand how they are having an interaction with themselves, with the surrounding, how they can influence the surrounding, how surrounding can influence the living beings. That simply becomes ecology as such. Right? So when we classify these things, or when we try and unfold this particular topic, the first aspect comes up with interaction, and that interaction is between living beings themselves. Now, a particular living being can be beneficial to something, other living being, or it can be harmful to some other living being, or it can be neutral to some other living being. Now, this criteria of being harmful or being neutral or being beneficial creates a series of interaction between these things. So when we try and start this particular interaction between living beings, the first thing that we need to see is what type of positive and negative interactions do living beings have between, say, themselves or with a group of living beings. So when we start up with this particular thing, the first aspect of this is to create a hierarchy of living beings over here. We call it as ecological hierarchy. How do you classify living beings? Like, for example, if you're trying to create an interaction, or if you're trying to study an interaction, or if you're trying to study anything, the first thing that you need is you need to understand the unit of that particular thing. right? For example, you're simply measuring, say, a liquid, or you're measuring some weight. You need to have a unit, kg, liters, tons, etc. and etc. These are what? These are units. In the same way, it is a science, and science deals up with units. The first thing that we need to understand is how do we classify this particular interaction, or how do we quantify this particular interaction? Whether it is an interaction between you and me, a group and a group, a population or a population, a larger group, a country and a country and the surrounding. So these are different stratas of interaction between the living beings, between the surrounding also. So when we try and classify this particular thing, first thing that we need to understand is the hierarchy. How do you classify? Like, for example, in anything we speak about, the unit of all these interactions is one single individual. You yourself would be something that can be the single most actor of this particular process which is going on. You will initiate. Then there are people, those who are similar in characteristics, in behavior, in interaction. Then there are certain which are a bit different. Then there are certain which is far more different. Like, for example, we speak about human beings, they are living, and a caterpillar is also living. Human beings will have interactions. The caterpillar will also have an interaction. Whether the interaction that human beings have or the interactions that caterpillar have with the surrounding, does it differs or is it similar? Human beings are also dependent on soil, water, air, temperature or sunlight. Caterpillar probably is also dependent on soil, water, air, temperature and sunlight. Then how they are different? That's why, to understand the similarity or to classify the difference over here, first thing that we need to understand is how ecologically living beings are classified. And then there are certain definitions associated with this. Say, when we say ecological hierarchy, we try and define certain things like, first thing is individual, then say a species, a community, a population, and then there are certain zones or areas where they can exist, where we define habitat and niche. Landscapes. And of course, together we try and define ecosystem. Which practically speaks about one particular thing, how the interactions can be created, where the interactions are created, how significantly the conditions are different, how significantly the interactions are different. And then, when we have understood this particular thing, then we can understand the interactions. Say, between living beings we have positive interactions, multiple of them, starting from, say, we speak about mutualism, symbiosis, commensalism, proto-cooperation, and then there are certain negative interactions. Now these are something which looks like the theoretical aspect of this particular topic. Of course they are theoretical, but the objectivity of this particular topic is high. Every now and then, say in 2015 itself, we see a definition is being asked over niche. In the earlier year, the definition of habitat is asked. So this creates an objectivity of this particular topic also. And then we jump on to the objectivity of this particular topic. Then these types of interactions are simple, not very lengthy, but the examples of these interactions. Like for example, when we say symbiosis, you might have heard about the gram or the leguminous plants. You know what are leguminous plants? Protein or say pulses, gram and all these. These are certain plants which probably do not require the fertilizer or the nitrogen based fertilizer. Why they do not require the fertilizer? Because they can participate, or there are certain microorganisms with them which can participate in biological nitrogen fixation. What is biological nitrogen fixation? Then biological nitrogen fixation is conversion of the atmospheric nitrogen which is present into soil nitrates. Now there are certain aspects of it. And then there is an interaction between a particular living being, which is the microorganism, and the plant. What is it? Interaction between living being and living being. What type of interaction is it? A positive interaction, because it is beneficial to those two which are participating in that particular process. So to understand the process, and as far as examples of this particular process is concerned, is also equally important over here. So that's why the objectivity of this particular topic increases in all these things. Then negative interactions, when we speak about interactions like amensalism. Just a cooperation between two living beings, which probably happens for a beneficial cause, but is not compulsory. It is not compulsive. It is practically different. Both of them, symbiosis, mutualism, proto-cooperation, they are all in the same genre, but with a slight difference. We'll see with examples. We'll unfold all these things. Predation and all these things. So first aspect over here is regarding the interaction between living beings. The second aspect of this topic probably comes up from the concepts of geography also, which is regarding soil, water, air, temperature and sunlight. Pardon? Probably sometimes if it is beneficial, it can be positive. We have to look up to the end resultant of it. What is the end resultant of it? Like for example, between species, we also speak about competition. What is going on right now? This is an interaction. This is competition. Is it a positive interaction? If it brings in something good in you, it is a positive interaction. Right? So, or if it is harmful to a particular population, decreases the number of individuals. Say if there is a competition between a tiger and a tiger fighting around, and a tiger is being killed. Right? Now what we have done? We have created multiple steps, multiple initiatives to conserve a tiger. We are not killing the tiger, but tigers are fighting themselves, and one of them is being killed. What is the end resultant of that? A particular tiger is being killed, the number of that particular species declining. So that becomes the negative interaction. So sometimes we have to look up to the end resultant of that particular interaction also. What kind of end result is being created over there? That also defines. Competition can also be positive in their aspect. That's what I have spoken about. It can bring in migration also. Like for example, a tiger is competing with the other one. The other one has lost the battle and has to move from that particular area or that particular habitat or that particular vicinity as such. Or it has moved out of that particular vicinity, has settled down in some other vicinity, a new family is being created, more number of species are created over there. That is positive. But that tiger has left that vicinity or that habitat and has wandered around and is being killed by any particular, say a natural factor itself, not the external factor. What is that? That sometimes becomes declining also. So that's what I'm trying to say, that we have to look up to, sometimes with these interactions, we have to look up to, there are certain interactions where the end resultant has to be seen. Sometimes it brings in diversity also. Like for example, a particular individual is facing problems in a particular vicinity or in a particular habitat. It moves out of its native habitat, moves into some other place, gets settled down over here, increases the number of individuals over there. What would it bring? It would bring in diversity. What happened with human beings? What happened with human beings? When we speak about the human types or human races, how many types of human races are defined? Practically 7 human races are defined. First one, the Caucasians that we are into, the Asians or in this particular area, the Mongoloids, the Australians, and then we have the Europoids, then we have the Red Indians, then 2 in Africa, the Negroid and the Kalahari Desert one or the Bushman. And then we have 7, and then we also have a particular race which is Asian one. Now when we classify all these types of races, Caucasians or all these, Indians, they are classified as Caucasians, but not all Indians are Caucasians. The true Caucasian state or the true Caucasian human race exists in India beyond the boundary of Vindhyachal or Satpura Plateau, practically in peninsular India. And the human race over here in the northern India is practically undefined. We are not the Caucasians, the true Caucasians. The true Caucasian defined straight hair, black hair, broad forehead, broader eyes, black complexion, maximum average height of a male is 5 feet 5 inches. Now you see, do you differ from all these characters? We do. The fairer complexion in India is not the one which has been defined as, say, this is the actual, could be the actual Caucasian characteristic. Then what is this? This is, we say, a mixed breed. Why does a mixed breed? Now you unfold ecology or unfold this particular thing with the history itself. We read about history. There are multiple invasions on the northern Indian. Every time, every century you see, every 100 years, you will see at least 4 or 5 invasions over northern India. What do you speak about? What do you think about invasions? Invasion is not something which we will say invasion is political or economic. Invasion is also based on the population. Population do flank in. Say a Mongoloid population flanked in, or a Negroid population flanked in, or something which has been not defined as flanked in, or the Aryans have flanked in. As one of the concept of Germans say, that the only breed that existed in the world was Aryans, which is the pure breed, and everything else is what Aryans have settled. This is the concept of Nazis. Probably science does not deals up with this. But yes, science does tells it about that there are invasions, the population have mixed up in that particular era or in that particular time or in that particular geography. And when population have mixed up, there are intermixed characteristics of the population. That's why we see this particular belt, not even northern India, Afghanistan, Pakistan, this particular belt has always seen invasions. And when we say invasions, we also see diversity. So what was it? There was a competition between species or between individuals. Some of them moved out, invaded, or whatever practice it would have been, the population have intermixed. What is it has brought in? It has brought in, what is it? Competition. The end resultant is diversity, becomes positive. Was harmful at that particular time because it was decreasing the population of the inhabitants which were the actual Caucasians at that particular time. Probably. But right now, it has brought in another kind of population, probably with better genes, probably with better genetic makeup also, probably with better diversity also, those which can cope up with different types of environmental conditions also, became competition. So when we speak about these interactions, we have to see the optimality of that interaction also, whether it is bringing in some good characteristics, whether it is bringing in some bad characteristics, or whether it is increasing the type of characteristics in the population or amongst the individuals, or declining the characteristics amongst the individuals. It all depends on the nature of that particular interaction. So it can be positive and negative. Some of them, they are on the positive side always, whatever happens, it is always beneficial, so becomes positive. Some of them always negative, some of them becomes neutral. So such type of interactions, they have to be dealt. And the focus must be with the examples, because there are questions which are being asked over examples. Like a question asked in 2013 regarding mycorrhiza, PT. There is a very common question of these leguminous plants. There is always a question regarding other symbiotic associations. Then there are questions regarding other aspects of these interactions also. So objectivity of this particular topic is fair enough. We'll find at least a question coming from ecology if the number of questions are high from environment, and they are always high in PT. When we classify the number of questions coming from environment as such in PT, it has never been less than 10. It has always been between 10 to a maximum 18 questions they can be asked in PT. It has a significance. Of course, these questions vary from all the aspects, from theoretical, from being current issue based, from being pollution based, from being degradation based, then being from protocol based or the treaties or etc. and etc. Like the question this year, the International Solar Alliance. These are treaties and all. So this particular topic has a theory also. This particular topic also has a dynamics. Dynamics add in from the current happenings. So it is significant as such. Right. The second aspect over here in this topic is SWATs. We need to understand the native state of soil, how soil is created, horizon, what type of characteristics, how different soils are distributed practically in India, at least we know. That can come in from geography also. You might have read about red soil, black soil, alluvial soil, or loamy soil, or distribution of different soil types. How does it? Now, one step ahead from this, the type of question which is being asked. Now, they link in 2-3 things altogether. The first aspect is regarding the type of soil. Second aspect is regarding the temperature. And the third aspect they can ask is regarding the type of crop or regarding the type of vegetation, which have been the common factor. If you look up to the previous year question papers, these questions, they were all common in 2011, 12, 13. and chances of error in this particular type of questions were high. Probably we would have, what students would have done at that time from the geographical point of view, of course in detail this has been taught in geography, probably you might have learnt about geography, physical geography, and then you will come into economic geography where all these things would be dealt. Then distribution and type of agriculture or crops, they are being dealt in geography on a macro level. But then interlinking all these things becomes important. So to understand the native state of this and this is equally important. As a number of questions, or say 1 or 2 questions they can be asked from ecology every year. 1 or 2 questions they are asked from this particular aspect also. First thing, type of soil. Second thing, water resources, their existence. When we start up with water resources, you have to classify this particular thing. Marine water, fresh water, their existence, their percentages. Fresh water in glaciers, in rivers, in lakes, as groundwater reserve. All these things. Now there was a question in 2012 again. The amount of fresh water present in the glaciers is 96%, or is it 97%, or it is 10%, or it is 20%. The database. Simple. Then whether it is far declining or it is not declining, it is conserved, what is the state of it, how it can help, how it can bring in the interaction. Second aspect of it. Air and atmosphere. The existence of everything in the atmosphere, different layers. You have seen the atmosphere. पढ़ा है थोड़ा सा physical geography में अभी atmosphere में देखा होगा starting from say the lowermost layer. Which is the lowermost layer? Troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, ionosphere, thermosphere, and then the exosphere, and then their importance, then their importance and existence of the climate. Probably that deals up with geography also. We will see the important aspects over here as far as atmosphere is concerned. Then the temperature. The reasons, the different classes, the different areas defined as far as temperature is concerned, and the sunlight. Different types of waves, how the heat budget of the earth is created, how temperature or the sunlight has an interrelation, that can be dealt over here. So a native state of these non-living characters or the platform has also to be discussed. And then how all these things can have an interaction with themselves and how they have an influence with themselves. That comes in with biogeochemical cycles. How we use different types of elements, nutrients present in the surrounding, how it influences, how it is decreased, how it is increased, what enriches the nutrient, what depletes the nutrient, what probably can create other interactions. That becomes one of the aspects of ecology. The second aspect of ecology is the functional aspect of ecology. Which probably comes in from the interaction of living beings also. How productivity is being defined. Now say for example, you're dependent on something. You're dependent probably on living beings. Every living being somewhere, somehow is dependent on living beings. And when we classify or when we try and understand the living beings, what is required for living beings is always food or we say nutrition. This is the prima facie important aspect for any living being. A living being cannot exist without food itself. Food is important, and how food is derived over here. How many types of living beings you see as far as food is concerned? Probably 3 or 4. There are certain which are herbivores, there are certain which are carnivores, there are certain which are omnivores, there are certain which are dead and decaying which are eating dead and decaying substances, the saprotrophs. Right. And there is one more class, the opportunistic wars. Probably they can eat anything, whatever they find. That is not the class of ecology, but in general, right? So when we say food is the prima facie thing required for living beings, then it also creates one of the interaction between living beings. So over here, nutrition becomes the functional aspect of ecology. Probably whatever we see, probably in whichever way we see the interaction between living beings and non-living beings. First aspect probably can be biogeochemical cycle, where we speak about carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, water, sulfur, phosphorus being used and added into the environment. Now, all these somewhere somehow becomes one of the aspect where living beings are driving the food. So what it is? The interaction started with extraction of nutrients from the surrounding, and then the interaction gets prolonged into a fashion where living beings are transferring these particular nutrients amongst themselves. That becomes the function of the ecology, or initiates the functionality of the ecology. Brings in productivity amongst individuals, brings in productivity amongst living beings. So that is also one of the interaction, where we speak about exchange of food. We classify the living beings between different aspects, between being a producer. Like for example, wherever we say, whatever type of nutrition or food you will say, the origination of the food is always from sun, of course, from photosynthesis is the first thing. Whether you be carnivore or you are an omnivore, wherever this particular process ends up into, but it will always start up with the photosynthesis, because somewhere somehow all these nutrients link up into the living beings from photosynthesis. So then we start classifying the living beings into being producers and then into consumers. Probably you can be classified into two cases itself. Either you are producing the food, you are fixing in these nutrients, making it available for others, or you are simply enjoying whatever is being present with the environment. Many of us, we are all consumers. Probably there is a class of producers which comes in from plants or different types of microorganisms, algae, microalgae, etc. and etc., which can probably go for photosynthesis. When this interaction comes in, this becomes the food chain. And when food chain comes into a concept, energy in the form of food are being exchanged among individuals, and that probably becomes a compulsory interaction. So this again defines the apex interaction between living beings, which is the dependence over energy and food as such. And this also classifies how a particular system is productive or non-productive in a way or in a sense. So this becomes, say, 80% of the ecology or of this particular topic that we speak about. Another aspect when all these interactions are clubbed together, the interaction between living beings, the interaction between non-living beings, and then their mutual interaction between living and non-living, when all of them are being clubbed together, it creates a functional entity of the surrounding. As such, when I have asked this particular thing, how do you define surrounding or how do you define the environment, you said it is about living beings and the surrounding, or it is about living beings and non-living beings. Again, we need to club all these things together. And when we club all these things together, it comes up as a concept of ecosystem. Of course, ecosystem is influenced by the non-living factors. A set of non-living factors is influenced by the type of living being, and probably not all living beings are similar in their nature, behavior, characteristics, and probably not all non-living things are continuous on earth. You have a different range of soil, you have a different range of water in different areas, you have different range of atmosphere in different areas, you have different range of temperature in different areas. So is about sunlight also. Practically, sunlight is also not similar all across the earth also. It varies with the longitudes, the latitudes, the altitudes. So when this variation is common amongst these factors, then of course the interactions are also not uniform. Probably the interactions are also varying. So this varying interaction brings in a variety, or say a diversity. And what is that? That is the diversity of the ecosystem on a whole. What is ecosystem? It is just living beings, non-living beings all clubbed together, one ecosystem. Different types of conditions, different types of living beings, different types of ecosystems. Probably there could be an ecosystem in this class itself. If we have, say, if we start creating those things, like we have producers over here or plants over here which can sustain this particular population, there could be an ecosystem over here. So a self-sustainable model of interaction becomes ecosystem, and when these interactions, they are different, so is the ecosystem is different. So different types of ecosystems we see. And when different types of ecosystems we see, we also club up different types of natural vegetation patterns. And their influences. Now from here on, it can unfold into two different directions. This itself unfolds into the initiation of the topic biodiversity, And this again unfolds into another aspect, which is degradation. Because biodiversity as such, we will speak about this particular aspect again. Degradation, which is the next topic as far as this is concerned, whenever we'll have interaction between living beings or say non-living beings, this is for sure that if the equivalence between both the factors, say for example, if I say one particular aspect, that we have say 100 plants, each plant can feed say 10 individuals. A plant can feed 10 individuals. That means on these 100 plants, if this is maintained, and each of this individual can again feed 10 individuals, right? So this creates a sustainable pattern, right? That if 100 plants are present in the surrounding and 10 individuals are common over here, and then 10 individuals are common over here, or this much number of individuals are common over here, this can be a sustainable model. Correct? And if everyone is using the resources in a miser way, then of course the sustainability can be maintained. But what if this level has this much number of individuals, or this much level has this much number of individuals? The equivalence is disturbed. The interaction is disturbed. And when this native interaction is disturbed, this becomes the onset of the concept of degradation. What has happened in India? चलो सब हटा दो. Speak about India. India का state क्या है? पिछले अगर हम we speak about last 100 years, what was the population when the first census was created in India? When was the first census created in India? 1911 started, 21 was the first census. Probably at that time the population was roughly 35 crore people over here. Now what is the population right now? 125 crore right now. Now in the last 100 years, whether the natural resources present in India, we have probably tripled the population. That means if this strata has increased, probably this strata should also have increased. Whether the natural resources or the factors which becomes the platform for the ecology, whether it has increased 3-folds or 4-folds, probably not. We are simply consuming and consuming and consuming these natural resources, and we have came down to a particular limit where we say that if we'll keep on consuming in this particular way, there would be nothing left for our future generations. Why this concept of environmental sustainability? Why this concept of environmental conservation also has initiated? Well, it is not about India. It is about this planet itself. We have not done it only in India, we have done it all across the planet itself. This sustainability is not being maintained. That's why one more concept came in, and that concept was how we are degrading the native resources, or the things which were present, or the platform on which all these actors, which are the living beings, they have a performance. So we started performing on a particular platform, and this particular platform is so overburdened that it has started to deteriorate, it has started to degrade. So the next aspect of it is to understand why this degradation. What could be the solution for this? क्या होना चाहिए? भाई अगर आपका पॉपुलेशन 3-fold बढ़ गया है और आपके नेचुरल रिसोर्सेज वहीं पर हैं, तो आप क्या करोगे? सबसे रिसोर्सेज बढ़ाओगे या आपके पास लिमिट है रिसोर्सेज को बढ़ाने की? चलो एक लिमिट के बाद रिसोर्सेज आप बढ़ा नहीं सकते हो, तब आप क्या करोगे? पॉपुलेशन कम करोगे? क्या करोगे? आईसिस को बोलोगे कि आओ 2-4 कंट्री में और पॉपुलेशन कम करके जाओ? पॉसिबल नहीं है। तब क्या करोगे? तब आप अपने रिसोर्सेस को सस्टेनेबल फॉर्म में यूटिलाइज करना शुरू करोगे। करेक्ट? जिसको हम बोलते हैं सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट। ना यहां से आप हर चीज को देखोगे, वो पॉलिसी नेटवर्क में भी जुड़ेगा, गवर्नेंस में भी जुड़ेगा, इश्यूज में भी जुड़ेगा। यहां तक तो सब थियोरेटिकल था, यहां तक जो चीजें थी वो सब आइडियल है। दिस इज द आइडियल बेंचमार्क। नथिंग इज आइडियल as far as utilization is concerned. The definition of being ideal keeps on changing with the utilization also. As your utilization would change, the definition of being ideal would also change. The benchmark of being ideal would also change. Earlier, the ideal was having a serene environment, and then the ideal was we must have different utilities. When we have the utilities, then again the ideal kept on changing. What is the ideal right now? Now again we should have serene environment. Right? Started up with, we speak about the industrialized colony only. Say speak about 1750 and beyond. Nothing else. Right? I'm not speaking about the earlier years. You know the history of humans, they started up with being the prehistoric or the other ones, and they started using the metal, started building up tools, started going for agriculture, and suddenly started with industrialization, the mechanized colonies. The mechanization started, use of the fossil fuels started, use of the fossil fuels brought in pollution all across. When pollution started, degradation started, and then again the concept changed. Initially over here the concept was start using the environment, start using the resources which are present. And then the concept turned around. Now start conserving the environment. What we shall do over there? Whether we shall scrap all the projects of development? That becomes one particular question. You might have heard about certain things going on right now. Current affairs में थोड़ा बहुत पढ़ा होगा. Huh? Yeah. And the different aspects. जैसे अभी हम एक aspect को समझते हैं. That is, when we speak about बहुत basic बात को करते हैं, development. Right? What is the concept of development? Or what is the benchmark of being developed? There are certain countries which are developed, there are certain countries which are developing, and there are certain countries which are poor countries. Everyone has a benchmark. The poor one has to come into developing, the developing has to go into develop. India being into a range of being developing also, some say it is developed, some say it is developing, some say it is poor. Every now and then this concept flanks. Somewhere, somehow, this has to be done. Now, when we say development, it was a race to be mechanized, to be industrialized, and then again problems started, pollution started. So people right now, they have said that we must be moving on with sustainable development. Why this sustainable development? That is my point. And what is this sustainable development? Now, I speak about a simple village in India. India is the country of villages, so we speak about villages in India. There is a village, say somewhere in the remote area, has ample number of natural resources. There is a river flowing by, huge drainage of the river flowing by from that from that village. There are number of tigers, greenery, forest area near to that particular forest, near to that particular village. Initially, everything was dependent on that forest. Slowly, people understood that we need food, so they have gone for deforestation, started agriculture. From agriculture, they had money, so they built road all across the village. And then there was a concept that village needs electricity. So what they did, they started building a hydropower station in the river, in the vicinity. Now, of course, this was the thing that if the dam or the hydropower station would be built, the drainage of that particular river near the village would be lost forever. Now, question arises whether that dam should be built or not. You need electricity or you need water. Now, this is the same question that the world is facing right now. You magnify this to any scale, this is the same question that the world is facing right now. Whether should we have development or whether should we have environment? If we'll have environment, we'll not have development. Some people think. Some people think if we'll have environment, we'll not have development. So to create a balance between these two things, this concept came up. Sustainable development. And when sustainable development has came up, first thing that we need to understand with environment or the ecosystem is how, what and when we are influencing, or in which way we are influencing this native state. How the interactions between living beings and non-living beings have reached up to a particular level that it has created an imbalance over here. We cannot kill thousands of people over here just to decrease the population. ISIS can never be our hero. Whether it can be? No, it can never be our hero. Neither does the fast-moving industrialized colonies can be our hero. Do you think what happened in Japan in 1946 was fair enough? The nuclear bombing? Fair enough? That can't be our hero. That is one aspect of development. Can the increasing smoke coming from thermal power stations, that can be our hero? So leave the thermal power stations. Can the smoke coming out of our diesel vehicles, that can be our benchmark of development? No, that can't be. So both the things have to be balanced over here. So when we say this balance has to be created, when balance has to be created, that balance would bring in sustainable development. How we can create sustainable development? Then we have to unfold every aspect of it. And that comes up by simply understanding the fact that yes, we are degrading the environment. So next aspect of it is environmental degradation, and pollution. When we say environmental degradation and pollution, on a major note, we have classified this thing into being air pollution, being water, soil, noise, and radioactive. 5 major classes. And then there are certain minor classes being added into this whole concept of pollution. And the number of questions that are being asked, say probably in PT, sometimes in mains also, in the issues related to this, they are handsome. The number of questions which are being asked, at least 25% of the questions, somewhere, somehow, they are linked up with environmental degradation and pollution only in this particular topic. When we speak about this thing, first we say air pollution. When we scale down the objectivity of the topic also, we need to look up to air pollution. Air pollution वैसे पढ़ना चाहे तो there is ample number of things which are present. There is a huge database everywhere. But we need to zero down to certain things where questions are being asked. First thing, first aspect, what is the type of pollutant we are talking about? Simple question. When we speak about the pollutant, then different causes or factors, they are more important right now. Global, in India, both. What factor causes what kind of pollutant? Like for example, पीछे आप लोगों ने सुना होगा न्यूज़ में बहुत सारी चीजें रहती हैं. एक स्कीम था गवर्नमेंट का, ऑड एंड इवन कार्स. सुना होगा, सभी ने सुना होगा. न्यूज़ तो वैसे भी सब चीज़ों को पहुंचा देता है. And this was the concept at that time, that the government of Delhi or government of National Capital Territory understood this particular thing, that the pollution level is increasing day by day, and one of the aspect of this pollution is PM 2.5. And then they zeroed down to this particular thing, that PM 2.5 is coming on from diesel cars, probably more from diesel cars. And then also they have a characteristic classification that anything which is greater than 2000 cc and anything which is less than 2000 cc, there is a difference in this particulate matter 2.5. So what they did, they created a policy to scrap down these type of vehicles and lower the number of vehicles over here. We cannot outrightly say this particular thing, that vehicles are creating pollution. That would be an immature statement. Probably would not create a policy. What is being done over here? This defines the series of everything. Why we need to understand the pollution. When we'll understand the pollution, we'll understand the pollutant, we'll understand the cause, the factor associated with this. Probably if we understand the cause or the factor associated with this, then only we can create a policy, at least to scrap down those factors which are creating much amount of the pollution. This does not mean that every car is creating pollution. It does create some amount of the pollution, but it can be on a level that we have seen, that a sustainability can be maintained from other vehicles but cannot be maintained from this particular vehicle. So when we speak about air pollution, we need to unfold into, first thing is about pollutant, second thing is the cause or the factor associated with that pollutant, and then the impact associated with that pollutant. These three are of supreme importance as far as the questions are concerned in this particular topic. We have also classified this particular thing into few factors like particulate matter and their impacts, their causes, carbon dioxide, their impact, their causes, methane, their impacts, their causes, volatile hydrocarbons, impacts, causes, then the ozone depleting compounds, ODCs, impacts, causes, which can be chlorofluorocarbon, perfluorocarbons, hydrofluorocarbons, and others. What are their impacts? That has to be seen over here. Then nitrogen oxides, impacts, causes, sulfur oxides, carbon monoxide, or that can be brought into volatile hydrocarbons, etc. and etc. These become the major types or classes of pollutants. And then how everything of it is being created, what impact does it creates, how it will deteriorate the environment in a longer way, that has to be understood with this particular topic. Second aspect of air pollution, after air pollution, we will speak about water pollution. Again, the same thing remains when we deal with all these types of pollution. This particular thing remains fixed. What is the pollutant? What is the source? What is the impact? That also remains common over here. Now, the pollutants, they keep on changing over here with all these things. When we speak about the first one, nitrates, sulfates, phosphates, arsenic, mercury, cadmium, lead, and then there are certain miscellaneous pollutants. Now over here, the first thing that is required, the pollutant, sources, fine. And then what is the permissible range of these pollutants? How do they can be controlled, or what could be the process? That can only be defined from what is the possible range of this particular pollutant. Like for example, this much amount of nitrates, if they are present in drinking water, they can be fine, there's no problem. Like for example, there was a question there was a current news regarding, you might have heard about this thing in the same year, right? And there was an agitation in Haryana regarding this. And after this, there was a water crisis in Delhi. And that water crisis was because of the increased ammonia level in the water supplied to Delhi, right? So what does it create? It again creates a benchmark for us that we need to understand what should be the ideal level of ammonia, that it has increased and has created a pollution in the drinking water supply, or it has been a degrading source in the drinking water supply. What is the concept has to be understood over here in general. So this thing has to be taken into care. And then again, soil pollution. We'll speak about different types of impacts also with different types of pollution. What all topics have to be taken into that. Reasons for soil pollution. Nitrates again. Nitrites and nitrates. Ammonia. Heavy metals. Pesticides and insecticides. Solid waste. That also covers municipal waste. And of course there are miscellaneous sources. Now there's one aspect over here which has came out of, again, from soil pollution. That is regarding e-waste, pollution, sources, causes. That has to be taken care into. Like there are multiple types of pollutants over here. Cadmium, bismuth, mercury, lithium. There are at least 12 classes of brominated flame retardants, lead, other heavy metals. So that has to be taken care of. With soil pollution again, we have biomedical waste also. Need to understand over here regarding different categories of these waste. Why, how it is being created and how it can be solved, or what, although policies and interventions can come in later also, but what could be the probable solution in generation of this biomedical waste. That can also be one thing. And then there are certain smaller topics also, like the municipal solid waste, its generation, dumping, dump sites, problems associated with this, what kind of problems they are associated, that can be dealt in a separate smaller section. Another one which is of importance, the construction waste, because India is fast growing developing or fast growing country as far as the infrastructure sector is concerned. We are going into this, what kind of problems it can create, that can also be understood over here. And then another problem related with non-degradable substances. That can be the plastic waste, as far as the domestic waste, which creates problem. So it can be added all into the soil pollution aspect over here. How these different types of pollutants, they are creating problems. And what are the issues? Now, when we speak about the main syllabi also, there are multiple guidelines, rules, everything associated with this every now and then that the government of India comes in with. They become the major issues also over here. What are the solutions created? What are the problems created? This has an objectivity as well as also the subjectivity also. So we need to categorize these type of pollutants as far as soil pollution is concerned. Yeah. It is a part of, it can be a part of domestic waste. Domestic waste can also be plastic waste. Apart from plastic waste, there are multiple other non-degradable substances which are used. So that has to be taken also. Right? Like there are gases or coolants or certain other chemicals which are being used, or simply using classes are almost the same, insecticides, pesticides or other which are being added into the soil. How it can be problematic, that has to be understood. Then of course, noise pollution. Again, sources of noise, sound, how they are being created, and the radioactive pollution. Their sources, that would be of importance. Now when we speak about impacts over here, starting from say air pollution itself. First of them, deteriorating air quality. Few of them are being chalked out, like the global warming or the increasing greenhouse effect. That would be first and foremost. Then smogging, fogging, second aspect. Global dimming, third aspect. Ozone layer depletion. Acid rain. They remain some of the major impacts of what we see as impacts of air pollutants. Water pollution. Impacts that we classify, number one, different types of disorders or diseases. Which are created different types of blue baby syndrome, or there is mini matter disease, or there is itai disease. Different types of diseases that are being caused over here from water pollution. Second thing, over here, with water pollution also, with soil pollution also, biomagnification. Third aspect with water pollution, impact, eutrophication. And then there are certain minor aspects also in this. Soil pollution again. Biomagnification. And we need to list down the problems associated with decreasing soil quality. Noise pollution, health hazards, and radioactive pollution. The ecosystem hazard that has been created. Which become the major impacts of it. Now, of this, when we speak about, then there is one more topic that can be stretched out of these impacts. That is global warming and the global climate change. That again becomes another stretch of the topic out of it. When we say global climate change, we need to classify over here, as far as global climate change is concerned, the natural factors associated with this. Which certainly transform the weather cycle or the climate cycle. What are the reasons associated with this? The native state of Earth, its motion, how the motion or its existence on its orbits or itself onto its rotational axis also, how it can create a kind of problem and how it can change or alter the climate, which is the natural state. And then there are anthropogenic factors. Associated with this. One aspect of it. Second aspect, what is the possible effect of global climate change? 3 or 4, there are major effects, then the minor effects taking effect on every particular section. Like for example, the major impacts of global climate change, they are being spoken about. Then the temperature would rise, the glaciers would melt, the sea level would rise. These are the general things. And then how it impacts the ocean ecosystem, how it impacts the soil-based ecosystem, how it impacts the natural vegetation could be one of the aspects that would be dealing with us. And then the sector-based impacts, impact on agriculture, impact on the sustainability, impact on the industries, impact on the shipyards or transport system, impacts on the social classes, impacts on the women, impacts on the empowerment. That all has to be dealt over here with the impacts of global climate change. So this also comes out of one of the aspect of the impacts of environmental pollution and degradation. Another aspect over here comes up with conservation strategies, things that can be done to improve the state of environmental degradation. Now for a sustainable environment, we do need conservation as such. This again, now this links up with the current aspect. It is the most dynamic aspect of the environment as such. There are many subtopics into this. The first aspect with conservation, speak about then different pollution based conservation. Like for example, we speak about air pollution, then how it can be conserved. The first strategy can be minimize this particular thing, right? The first aspect with one of the major sources of air pollution are industries. Then, so the air purification mechanism, which is used in industries. There are different types of purifiers as far as industries are concerned. The long chimneys, the wet scrubbers, the electrostatic scrubbers, or different other scrubbers which are being used to purify the air or the smoke coming out of it. That can be one aspect. Then second aspect can be those which are associated with automobiles, how different types of fuels are being burnt, different types of engines are being created, different strategies are being created. Like for example, if you speak about different types of cars right now, we have diesel run cars, or we have say petrol run cars, or we have CNG run cars. Before that, we all had either a petrol vehicle or something else. So policy interventions that are being taken up, the initial steps which are being taken up with automobiles, and then different other miscellaneous sources that can be think. Then how conservation strategies can be implied over, or how thermal power stations can be improved. So strategies to bring in these things. First aspect of it. In water pollution, when we speak about, so we'll take into account water treatment strategies, sewage treatment strategies, so that the pollutants can be minimized, how different types of pollutions or pollutants or that all can come into the water treatment mode. That can be another aspect of it. Then again, soil pollution when we speak about, then remediation strategies as far as this is concerned. This can be first aspect of it, of the conservation. The tools which are being applied over here. From here, another aspect of conservation comes up with conservation based governance. Now this topic, abhi yahan tak you will find it all in your books. You talk about ecology, present with NCRTs, you can deal up with ecology in NCRTs. Pollution also, NCRTs are fair enough, sufficient enough to deal up with, and then there are multiple other books also. Conservation strategies also, these tools, they are also available as far as books are concerned. Some of them in NCRTs, some of them in other books of environmental engineering that we say. Governance is one topic which has by far in last 2 years has stretched its domains. Right. Now, when we'll say governance, this will deal up with all two, three things. First one, classify the national initiatives. Of course, this deals up with schemes, policies, acts, different types of acts which have been constituted, which are in force in India. At least 7 or 8 major acts, then there are minor guidelines, then there are certain amendments till the current aspect. That is one aspect, like starting from the Forest Act, Environmental Conservation Act, Forestation Acts, Air Pollution, Air Conservation and Control of Pollution Act, Water Conservation, Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act, Soil, and then these are different acts. What are their guidelines? What are their stretch? That would be the first aspect of it. And then the current happenings related to this, what all initiatives that Government of India has taken. First one, to fight up with the climate change, which is the National Action Plan for Climate Change. And then sector-wise different types of initiatives. Like for example, when we speak about air pollution, then there are multiple initiatives that the Government of India has taken. As far as automobile sector is concerned, then we have emission norms. Might have heard about this thing, BS 4 and 6. Right now, the controversy or the initiation that has to be taken up, how the emission norms are created. Now, this year itself, the question has indicated that how minutely things can be asked as far as these initiatives are concerned. There is another initiative over here, which is regarding air quality index. Now, there is a difference between the air quality index. Earlier it was used in cities in India, the air quality index which is used in at the global level, and then the national air quality index. Bit of difference, right? The question was asked this year itself, what are the parameters which are taken into account in the air quality index? There are 5 parameters given: carbon dioxide, methane, suspended particulate matters, and 2 of them more. Carbon dioxide, methane, they are not taken into air quality index of the Indian cities. Neither they are taken into national air quality index. So minutely we have to observe what are the different emission norms. Now when we speak about this emission norm, this would also be in details. There are different emission norms for diesel vehicles, small diesel vehicle, 2-wheelers, 3-wheelers, 4-wheelers, small. Then diesel vehicles, the heavier one, trucks, and then the transport vehicles, and then the diesel-based gensets. And so is the case with the petrol vehicles, so is the case with the gas-driven vehicles also. So we have to classify the norms, how, on what factors. Number one, it is being classified, what are the changes which are being taken into place. Now there are questions which, see, UPSC has not asked questions regarding what is the data, what should be the amount of sulfur present in the air coming out of this emission norm vehicle or carbon monoxide. Till date it has not asked. But जो state PCS वाले हैं वो एक step आगे हैं इनसे. 2013 onwards ये emission norm में ये पूछ रहे हैं that what amount of sulfur dioxide must be present, कितना % होना चाहिए, 0.02, 0.002, 0.0002, इस टाइप के क्वेश्चंस you will find it in UP PCS और even in MP PCS जो यूजुअली आप लोग आसपास के PCS एग्जाम्स देते हैं. सो उस टाइप के डेटा को भी हमको देखना होगा इसमें, उसको भी हमें क्लासिफाई करना, जस्ट फॉर द अंडरस्टैंडिंग. एक मेजर आउट ब्रीफ लेकर के इन इश्यूज पर बात करनी होगी. देन अदर इनिशिएटिव्स लाइक द इंडस्ट्री गाइडलाइंस, then the municipal waste guidelines, etc. That has to be the current happenings or issues that comes in into this, that flanks in into this, that also come into over here. Like for example, we speak about in this as far as water pollution is concerned. And how does the Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act, what are the stretches of that, how it deals up with the conservation of water pollution in the country, what are the recent happenings. Then there are certain initiatives that has been taken up by Government of India that has to be taken into this. So is for the case with soil pollution. So these recent happenings or the initiatives, that comes up into the first aspect of governance. The second aspect of it the national happening itself or the national initiatives itself. We have schemes, policies and acts. Then we have the initiatives or recent current happenings. Another aspect is environment impact assessment. And comparable to this, the social impact assessment, which has been initiated much recently or added into this. Now this also brings in the subjectivity over here, which has been asked in mains also. Like there was a question, what is the environment impact assessment of the thermoelectric power stations placed over the mouth of the coal mines? So different sectors associated over here, how environment impact assessment is being done, what all agencies are being mentioned over here, then the concepts of this particular thing regarding thermal power station, regarding nuclear power station, regarding this, that, there are 5, 6, 7 headings under this, how it is being done, or what all things has to be taken into consideration. Environment impact assessment, as far as social impact assessment is concerned. And then there's one more thing which has been added much recently, health impact assessment. So all these three things into the category of it, of the national initiatives itself. Another aspect with national initiatives is regarding the initiatives of renewable energy. You cannot create a sustainable environment as far as the energy sources, they are not sorted in the country. When we speak about the energy in the country, roughly 65% of the energy in India is extracted out of coal. When 65% of the energy is extracted out of coal, that also means the major amount of the pollutants that are being added in the country, they also come from coal itself. So how this state can be transformed? Roughly when we speak about India somehow is producing say 500 gigawatts of the energy every year approximately. That means 5 lakh megawatt hour of the energy is being created roughly every year. And of this 5 lakh megawatt hour of the energy, approximately 3.5 lakh megawatt of the energy comes in from the coal-based energy system itself. Is one thing. And then there are at least 11 types of energy generating systems present in the country also. They are just producing 1.5 megawatt hour of the energy. So how policies are being created over here? Because somewhere, somehow, energy generation is also creating pollution or degradation of the environment. So renewable energy, or say generation of the new sources, where we can speak about all different energy sources also, starting from solar to say hydroelectric, then hydrogen based, geothermal, wind and tidal, etc. and etc. Battery based, hybrid vehicles, all these things, they can be dealt with over here with the renewable energy concept also. Next aspect comes up with international initiatives. Which deals up with the first aspect of it, the history of it, how it is all created. Starting from 1972 to 1991, what were the development? How the Stockholm Convention was created, and then strategies started to come. World Charter for Nature, World Strategy for Nature was created. How IPCC came into force. How Montreal Protocol and then a Vienna Convention was created related to that. And then multiple aspects, what all happened between 1972 to 1991 at the global level. What were the initiatives? Why the initiatives were taken up? What were the reasons for those initiatives? First aspect. Post 1992 to say 2005, what all initiatives were taken? How Kyoto Protocol is created over here? What is Kyoto Protocol? And then there are multiple aspects over here. Inside Kyoto Protocol, the flexible mechanism, how flexible mechanisms deals up with different aspects, like there is clean development mechanism, and then there is joint implementation, then there is the emission trading mechanism, which also again links it up with the green economy or the carbon based economy, carbon trading, all these aspects over here. What happened between 92 to 2005? What all initiatives were taken up? How UNFCCC also came up with this. The functional aspects, how the governance at the international level is divided right now, that can be dealt over here. And then 2005 to 2012, how multiple initiatives were taken up. The Green Climate Fund, the afforestation initiatives, the different policies comparable to this, the policies in India which started up with the conservation of the forest over here. That would be another aspect. And then the recent happenings till 2015. What happened with the Paris Climate Conference? What are the initiatives? How it has changed from being from present in 1992 to 2015? How transformations have been generated? This adds up to the international governance part of the conservation aspect itself. Now with this, what we have done, we have simply classified the complete thing into 3 sections only. First section, just think about ecology, the conceptual one. Second aspect, the pollution degradation part. And the third aspect, conservation. Conservation deals up with everything. The grassroots initiative that we have taken to the policy that we have created. That all comes under the conservation board over here. Right? So, Overall, now when we define the number of questions that are being dealt over here. Now, as far as the objective questions are concerned, objective questions can be asked or are being asked from every aspect of what is written over here. There are questions regarding this air purification, automobile based things or thermal power stations, or there are questions regarding sewage treatment also earlier in UPSC. There are questions regarding schemes and policies every now and then. Say in 2012 a new act is created, what is that policy? So the current happenings also. Then regarding renewable energy, that has been one of the aspect of the UPSC based questions which have been increasing day by day. The number of questions, so much as such that in science and technology we have started creating a new domain in science and technology, which is energy technology. So dealing up with this aspect also, and the international initiatives. निकाल के लाते हैं यूपीएससी वाले, सबसे रेयर वाला जो इनिशिएटिव होगा उसको जरूर पूछ लेंगे कहीं से. तो किस किस इनिशिएटिव में है, एजेंसीज क्या करते हैं, उनका फंक्शन क्या है, इसको भी डील करना ऑब्जेक्टिव बेस्ड क्वेश्चंस में ये टॉपिक है. नेशनल इनिशिएटिव्स में if we'll speak about, or if we'll take out questions as far as mains have, or the topics coming from mains have been related to. One more thing that is of importance are the judicial initiatives. Now this deals up with National Green Tribunal, Supreme Court's verdict. Like for example in 2012 we have a question regarding sand mining, the go and no go areas as far as sand mining is concerned, how it is being classified in mains itself. Then what all initiatives NGT have taken up, that becomes one of the issue. So as far as when we are trying to create, or when we are trying to scrutinize the issues for mains, judicial initiatives, reviews, guidelines, they are of supreme importance coming from Government of India. Probably they are not asked directly as far as objective questions are concerned, but then there are subjective questions in which if any guideline is being created or a new initiative is being created, that becomes directly a question. Like for example in 2016, there are new guidelines regarding solid waste, there are new guidelines regarding plastic waste, there are new guidelines regarding biomedical waste, or there are new guidelines regarding construction waste. So of course, when we shut down all these things, the issues related to this, they also come in. They also flank in over here. Third thing, where issues which are created as far as mains is concerned, the environmental economy. What is the cost of environment conservation? What all thing has to be created at the international level? How environmental economy is functioning? How green economy is functioning? Green climate fund, or the green bonds, or different aspects of green economy. That is also one issue. Of course, that so much as such that over the years, in the last 2-3 years, we started taking this thing as such an economy in a separate section also. The green economy or the environmental economy. So that would be dealt with. Economy also, issues can be dealt over here also. Third thing. Fourth issue, where issues are being extracted in environment, is from, again, when environmental economy is concerned, over here itself I can deal it from the environment survey, from the economic survey. Of course, questions have remained restrained to policies, initiatives, fund or distribution of the funds as far as economic survey is concerned, or new initiatives, or what are the guidelines on which the government of India is working, what are the plans or proposed plans over here. On these modes, issues can be developed. Then sustainable development, problems and solutions. They can be another mode where questions or issues can be driven out of these things. And then any new committee or review report of any particular committee, like TSR Subramaniam committee or Kasturi Rangan committee, or any new review committee that has been created as far as environment is concerned. That creates the major issues apart from the topics which we have dealt over here. Of course, environment impact assessment, social impact assessment, and recent happenings can't be cut down out of the issues which can be created in environment as such. So this brings up a wholesome approach for environment as such. And there is one more topic which has been dealt in parallel with this. Comes up from the way we have left it, biodiversity. Over the last 4 years, at least we see, this has been one of the topic which has been one of the most problematic area as far as PT is concerned. Environment में तो बहुत सी चीज़ें फिर भी resources available हैं, थोड़े से clues समझ में आते हैं कि इन topics पर question बन सकता है. Sometimes biodiversity और art and culture ये दो topics हैं जो every now and then PT में alternative years में कहीं ना कहीं अपना domain एकदम से बढ़ा देते हैं. And sometimes students become clueless in these two topics. बिल्कुल होता है. जैसे last year था, art and culture पे question पूछ लिया ज़्यादा. जो students अच्छे से करके गए थे art and culture, ठीक है. उसके previous year में biodiversity के ही question थे. जैसे इस year में थोड़ा सा environment का scope बढ़ा दिया है. उसके previous 2-3 years से biodiversity के ही question पूछ रहे थे. So as far as PT is concerned, this is again an important topic. आप environment में अगर देखेंगे, then 10 to 12 questions that can be asked in environment. Equally, at least 8 to 10 questions they are asked in biodiversity also. And sometimes both of them clubbed together, approximately 20-21 questions coming from this particular section, environment and biodiversity. 1/3 तो इसी ने cover कर दिया. Right. So that's why objectivity of this particular topic is equally important. When we speak about biodiversity, the first thing that we need to understand with this particular topic is the natural vegetation pattern. Again, coming from that ecosystem part of ecology. The second aspect is regarding the traditional diversity of living beings. पहले तो हम जो theoretical है उसको देखें सबसे पहले biodiversity को करने के लिए. So the traditional diversity. What all types of living beings are present. Now, as such, this is also one of the part or aspect of biology. Right? लेकिन जब हम biology में पढ़ते हैं तो बहुत bulky हो जाता है यह topic. यहाँ पर हम biodiversity में जब पढ़ते हैं सिर्फ 2 aspect को हम लेके चलते हैं. पहला, how living beings are classified. Simply एक general understanding होना चाहिए कि living beings का classification क्या है, कैसे अलग अलग होते हैं. एटलीस्ट पता होना चाहिए कुछ बैक्टीरिया होते हैं, कुछ फंगस होते हैं, कुछ वायरसेस होते हैं और वो ये चीज़ें. These are those which would make small questions. what are bacteriophages? What is this kind of fungus? What is that kind of bacteria? What is that kind of the plant? These are traditional questions which can be solved. Number one, how they are classified. Second, what is their economic importance? This again is important. Not only for UPSC, but again for other PCS exams also. Like for example, I remember in 2013 in UP PCS there was a question asked that if honey bee is making a tail waggling dance creating a 8, what does it mean? Now see, this kind of question is also asked in PCS. So that is coming from the economic importance of the living beings. It means that the source of food is nearby. Right? So there is a pattern, tail waggling dance, and then making 8, making 0. 0 means there's nothing, just elope out of here. If it is a tail waggling dance, then there is an enemy over here, just move away. So there are certain signals. These are just the economic importances of these things. So agriculture based or any other, say pisciculture or different types of fish harboring or say pearl production or etc. and etc. lac production, these are silk production, these are traditional topics which are probably topics of economic geography also, that can be dealt over here with economic importance of the living beings. And then the state of natural vegetation in India, natural vegetation pattern global, natural vegetation in India. Different climatic zones. Now, traditionally or theoretically, if we'll see, then this can be classified into multiple ways. There's one climatic classification. Then there is one agroeconomic zone based classification. Then there is one natural vegetation based classification. Then there is one soil based classification. What we can do, we can club all of them together and we'll create ecological, agroeconomic, climatic zones. Right? We'll club all these things together. What is ecological significance? What is agricultural significance? What is economic significance? What is climatic significance? सबका एक जगह पर एक tabulated form में we'll see the natural vegetation pattern, where on a major note or on a minor note, this is all classified into 13 or 14 zones, different zones. So state-based things, state-based patterns, state-based climatic things, agriculture pattern, soil pattern, rainfall pattern, geographical pattern, all clubbed together, that can be seen over here. And then distribution of flora and fauna, different areas. That would be another aspect. Key species of the year. This is more important. In the last 2-3 years, what have been the species which have been spoken of the most as far as current affairs is concerned? That brings in questions regarding biodiversity which are clueless. Like for example, in 2015 there was a question regarding dugong. Dugong reports, they were published since 2013, 14, 15, they were published. So a question regarding dugong is being created. In the earlier year, there was a question asked over lion-tailed macaque. And the same year there were reports regarding lion-tailed macaque. So the key species of the year, like for example, in the previous year question paper itself, there was a question regarding Ganga river dolphin also. Right? So what are the aspects related with these key species that can be dealt over here? And then conservation of biodiversity, which is of importance. What are the patterns of conservation? How biosphere reserves, national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, they are created, wetland, they are all created, how they are conserved, what are the acts and policies, what are their stretches, how they are being created in India, and then majority of them in India, listing them, their keystone species or the major conservation species over here, a list of that becomes one aspect of it. Another aspect, any step or initiative, act and policies in the current happening, that would also add up to the issues over there in the environment and biodiversity section of the mains also. That is also important. International initiatives. Different types of conventions. Vienna Convention, CITES, Cartagena Protocol, etc. and etc. All the protocols that was your concern. So that can be dealt over here in the biodiversity separate, environment separate. So that becomes the aspect of biodiversity as such. So we'll be dealing up with all of this, environment, ecology, biodiversity section on a whole. We'll create a holistic approach for, say, PT as well as mains also. As far as the books which are concerned, that you can refer up to, of course, you can refer up to our study material also. Apart from that, you can refer up to NCRTs, categorically NCRT class 11th and 12th, biology, sections of ecology, and then class 12th chemistry, section of green chemistry, which deals up with the environmental chemistry and questions related to that can be solved over there. Apart from that, if you will find a teacher's manual of environment, which is published from NCRT itself. It is a teacher's manual on environment that deals up with major acts, policies which you can read up. Although it has not been very much updated, but the traditional ones, they are exactly listed with the teacher's manual of environment from NCRT. And then there are, of course, available in the market are NIOS books also for environment, or say we have, apart from NCRT, ICS books also for environment. On a whole, somewhere, somehow, they are all lined up on the same line, deals up with the same thing, and the current affairs. So as far as current affairs is concerned, be restrictive to one or two sources only. The first source for current affairs, of course, any newspaper that you follow. Second source, PIB, and inside PIB, you go in for Ministry of Environment and Forest. The concurrent releases of the month you can see, because that adds up to the issues and policies or acts or guidelines that are being released by Government of India. You can search in up with these all things also, with the Environmental Ministry website also. So that can be one of the source. Be restrictive to this. Keeping on to one source and revising the things multiple times would add in values to this, rather than isse bhi dekh lo, usse bhi kar lo, usse bhi kar lo. That would be that won't add in much of the value, right? Although the exam is more information based, the subjectivity of the exam is quite high, but we will try and deal up with majority of the issues, right? Any question, doubt? Sure. So we'll start up with next week. That's it for today. Thank you.